Every parent loves nap time. At least if you're honest with yourself, we all love nap time. Nap time is like the holy grail for parents. But what happens when your toddler or your 4-year-old, 3-year-old decides that nap time is no longer happening? I have a strategy for you that I've implemented with my oldest and soon to be my youngest, and it works really great because I still get the benefit of nap time and she still gets the benefit of quiet time, so it's a win-win. My oldest daughter, who is now 6.5 years old, stopped napping when she was about, I'd say 2-ish. It was early. She didn't nap with any regularity from about 18 months on, but I kind of just hobbled through and took what I could get. And so about 2.5-ish or so, it was evident that nap time was no longer going to be happening in our house. And fortunately, thankful for the wisdom from my mom and my aunt, they both said, don't give it up. Quiet time is where it's at. And I'm like, quiet time, okay, all right. I mean, I get it. I see what quiet time, but what does it look like? What do I do? And so after talking through what they did and what would work for our family, we kind of figured out a plan that we call quiet time, which we actually still do with our 6.5-year-old. And it enables me to have a little bit of time during the day. I mean, she's at school now, but on the weekends she has quiet time. And then I have quiet time, which means that I can take a nap or take a bath or, I don't know, do whatever I want, paint my toenails. And I don't have a little helper with me. And I'm so happy to see her when quiet time's over, and she's happy to see me. So it's kind of a win-win situation. So a good question would be, when do I know that they're ready to transition from nap time to quiet time? I am not a sleep expert, and I don't know your child. You are the expert on your kids' sleeping behaviors, so you'll know this better than I. In my experience with my oldest, I held on for dear life to those naps until it became very evident that she wasn't going to be napping anymore. And what that looked like for us was not just a few weeks of her deciding not to nap. It looked more like a few months of how often is she napping. And it got to the point where she was napping maybe once a week if she was really tired. And then all the other times it was a struggle. And it wasn't quiet time for me. It wasn't relaxing time for me. It was me watching the monitor or making sure she didn't scale her crib or climb her bookshelf or whatever. It was not restful for either of us. And so after watching her and over a period of time, that was when we made the decision. So I would encourage you to do that with your child. Watch and wait. Don't just make this decision after your kid decides not to nap for a couple days, because around the time that they're toddlers, 2.5, there's a lot going on in their world. I mean, they're learning new things, and there's this verbal explosion, and there's a lot happening. They're learning a lot. They're getting to be, bigger and all that. So make sure that when you decide to pull the trigger on going to quiet time, that it is not something rushed, because hold on to the naps. Hold on to them. Don't let them go. So when you get to that point where you're like, okay, naps are done, or you start to see that maybe on those days that they skip the nap, that they don't turn into a complete psycho at 4:45 or 4:30 or 5 o'clock or whatever time that witching hour is, if you start to see that they can actually hang it together for a full day, then you think, okay, we might be getting close to time. So once you've decided that it is time to transition your child to quiet time, my first suggestion for you is going to be figure out where are you going to do quiet time. Now, if you live in a house where they have their own bedroom, the answer is probably going to be kind of obvious. Do it in their room. Or unless you want to do somewhere else. But if you live in an apartment or in a smaller home and you have other children and maybe they share rooms, you might have to get a little bit more creative, but don't lose heart. We have some suggestions for that. But once you figure out where you're going to have the quiet time, and real quick, I would suggest don't do it unless you have zero other options. Don't do it in mom and dad's room. A couple reasons for that. That's your room. That if they're in there having quiet time, that means you can't be in there doing anything really, because they're going to be like, what are you doing? What's going on? Can I help? Can I come out? What's happening, Mom? And that's not relaxing. That defeats the purpose. The second question that you're going to want to ask yourself is how long? Now, it's going to change. It's going to kind of evolve. But with my oldest, when we started doing quiet time, she was about 2.5. You have to train them. This is not going to come easy for them, especially when they were like, oh, you mean you're not going to try to force me to take a nap? You mean I can get up and do things? Like, hey, I'm going to come out of my room. I'm going to see what you're doing. So this isn't going to come naturally, I don't think, for most kids. So my suggestion would be to, once you've figured out where they're going to be and what that's all going to look like, then you figure out timing. I would honestly start with 30 to 45 minutes. Now, I know you're thinking like, that's not long enough to get anything done. You're right, but it'll get better. That was where we started. We started with about 30 to 40 minutes, and we had a small battery operated alarm clock, and I set it and let it go off for my daughter to hear. And I said, okay, this is your alarm clock. I said, you have to stay in your room until your alarm clock goes off. For whatever reason, she decided that it was a text message. And so the first day when she did her quiet time, and she forgot because she was busy playing and having fun, and she got all involved, and then the clock went off. Beep, 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 beep. And I heard her go, like that. She grabs it and she runs down the hall as fast as her little legs can carry her, and she said, Mommy, it's a text message. And I'm like, you got a text message? She was like, yeah, I got a text message. I'm like, okay, push the button. And she pushed it. And she was so excited. And then, of course, that snoozed it. So 8 minutes later, we had all the excitement all over again. So that was great fun. I have fond memories of that. So we started off with, 30, 40 minutes or so. And then I went for a couple days, and she came out a couple times, and I helped her remember, you don't come out, this is quiet time. Mommy also needs quiet time to do things and to nap and that type of thing. And so we just kind of gently guided her back into her room, and then we increased the time. And so now that she's 6.5, it kind of depends on the day and what that looks like, but she has at least 1 hour of quiet time on the days, especially on weekend days. Some days when she's home from school, she gets quiet time, but it's at least an hour. Now, here's the thing about quiet time and why I feel like it's important. Obviously, us adults know why it's important, but for kids, I think there's actually quite a few benefits. Number one is it helps them figure out how to manage themselves. They're antsy, or they're bored, or they, have the wiggles. Okay, well, you can't come out of your room, so you're going to have to figure it out. So it helps them learn self-control, which is pretty important. The other thing that quiet time is great for is it helps them build their imagination. My oldest daughter has the wildest imagination, and I'm sure that it's due in part to the fact that she's had to, figure it out. I've gone in there I don't know how many times, and she has like every toy and every little thing in her room set up, and it's like a village, and this is the world, and the Octonauts are over here doing something, but the Barbies are here too, and they're, it's all intermixed. And sometimes I'm like, okay, your quiet time's over, and she'll be like, can I keep playing? And I'm like, okay. So then I get extra time, and it's like, okay, great. And she's having fun, and I'm getting stuff done. Well, sort of. I have a 2-year-old. What's up? And then the other thing that's great, and I feel like is kind of underrated, is it helps them decompress. Some days when my daughter comes home from school, after we've said our hellos and chit-chatted and had a snack and all that, sometimes I have her do a short quiet time simply because I can tell that she's just, she's just buzzing. So it helps her kind of come down from the day, calm down, decompress, and again, sort of manage herself. So those are some of the benefits of quiet time. One question that I've actually been asked a lot is, what about screen time during quiet time? So I would say, as a general rule of thumb, that I don't allow my daughter to have screen time during quiet time because I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose. This is sort of her time to calm down, to chill out, to let her brain rest, to use her imagination, work with her hands, touch things, play, that type of thing. And so if I give her, one of these, then that kind of is defeating the purpose. Now, having said all that, there are some days and some circumstances where I do allow her to watch a movie. I'm usually fairly picky. Like, I want her to watch something that has a little more educational value than just other things. I like a lot of the PBS Kids shows. She loves Wild Kratts, which is great with me because it's animals and it's learning things about the world, or super wise spelling and letters. So I'm definitely a little bit more choosy when it comes to screen time during quiet time. And it happens if she's sick or if I really need her to be quiet. So sometimes, but as a general rule of thumb, we don't allow screen time during quiet time because it defeats the purpose. One last question that I've gotten is, well, what do you do if they don't stay in their room? Well, so I have a really good friend who I know, and she has a really great strategy. I would never use this strategy because the state that I live in apparently doesn't like spanking and you can get in trouble. So anyway, this really great friend of mine told me that what she has done that worked really great for her child was a wooden spoon. So after you've explained to your kiddo what's going on and you've given them time to understand, and you have taken them back to their room and you've given them the warnings and you've made sure that they actually get it in their brain, and that now the reason they're coming out is they're just being obstinate. Well, she used a spoon, and it was just a nice little reminder that mommy's in charge, and mommy said that it's time to stay in your room and you don't come out until your until your clock or until it's over. Yeah. So that worked very well for this friend of mine, and if I didn't live in the state that I live in, I would probably do the same thing. One of my best friends does not have an additional room. Her kiddos share a room, and so the question, where do I put my kid for quiet time, she came up with a really great spot for her daughter, and it's been working out really well. We have a Facebook page. If you haven't checked it out, we would love to invite you to come and hang out with us on Facebook. We post a lot of family content and promos for the videos, etc. So join us there. I'd also like to invite you to be a subscriber if you're not already. We put out videos every week, and we'd love to have you join with us on this journey into family. If you like the video, please click like. If you know of anybody who is approaching this time in their life, this season in their toddler's life, we would be honored if you would share it with them. And that's it, guys. I hope you've had a wonderful day, or you're having a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you again next week for our next video. Bye!